For this webinar on what's new in Cscape 10. So just a quick presentation as to the changes in the latest version and the upcoming. If you have any questions, just feel free to put them in. We'll get to them at the end.
Hello and welcome to today's webinar. In this webinar, we are going to celebrate Cscape 10's 2-year anniversary by taking a look at some of the best features added since release. Here's the agenda for today. We will start with a one-slide review of Cscape 10. Then, we will go through our list of the top 10 features you might have missed. The first 5 features were released 2 years ago with the release of Cscape 10, and the last 5 features are new features that you might have missed since then. Lastly, we'll go through what's new in the latest release, Cscape 10.2 Service Pack 3. For any questions you might have, we will finish today's webinar with a Q&A session. Let's begin. What is Cscape 10? When Cscape 10 was being developed, we focused on 2 primary areas: user interface and graphics. These were the 2 areas we felt Cscape 9 was lacking in. One of the biggest changes from Cscape 9 is shown at the top, and that is the Quick Access toolbar. It organizes all of Cscape's functions in a sensible way and places them in a sleek and accessible access bar. There were other interface changes too, but this was the most significant. From a graphics standpoint, there was also a huge amount of changes, especially in the area of canvas graphics. The Canvas series is our top-of-the-line all-in-one controller series, and it was released concurrently with Cscape 10. The Canvas series offered great performance and connectivity, but they really shine in the graphics department. Push buttons, indicators, rotary dials, and more, all new and attractively designed. Some objects were entirely redesigned from the ground up, like the Trend object, with its new 16 pen capability and the ability to turn pens on and off dynamically at runtime. There were new objects added too, like the Video object, the Recipe object, and the Removable Media object. These changes represent the major advances made with the release of Cscape 10. But the rest of this webinar will be dedicated to covering some of the lesser known features that might improve your existing workflow. Let's now start the countdown. These first 5 features were available with Cscape 10 on release. First, at number 10, we have Easy Docking. It's crucial to be able to organize your desktop in the way that you want it, in order to work in the way that suits you best. In Cscape 10, there are several dockable features, like the Project Navigator or the Toolbox. Shown on the right is the standard layout of Cscape 10, but you can easily rearrange this scene to suit your needs. Simply grab the top of any window and drag it to the desired location. Arrows will appear on screen showing you all nearby dockable points. Dropping a panel will put it into that new location, where it will stay from that point onwards. At number 9, we actually have 2 features. The first is grids. Grids are a feature that allows you to control how graphics objects appear on the screen. This allows you to create really professional looking screens, especially with the global grid option, which allows you to set one grid for every screen. However, if one screen requires more editing, you can always use a local grid to increase its customization. Tied with this is global backgrounds. If you want to make sure your project looks uniform, you can set a global background to appear by default on every screen. This can be great for keeping a project uniform and making things look professional. At number 8, we have Ladder Display. This menu, shown on the right, is accessible from the Cscape Settings menu. It gives you full control over all the colors, fonts, function block shapes, line widths, and more, allowing you to customize Cscape 10 to your liking. At number 7, we have Align and Distribute. When you have a number of objects placed randomly around your screen, you can save time in organizing by simply selecting them all and right-clicking to align objects. This feature allows you to align all objects however you want, or distribute them evenly along the horizontal or vertical axis. At number 6, we have Object Defaults. When creating screens, you might end up customizing buttons or other objects to look a certain way. If you want this customization to be applied to all objects of the same type going forward, you can set an object default. Simply right-click on the object and select the Set as Default option. Now, every time you select that object, it will start out pre-configured with your preferences. You can do this with every object available in the graphics toolbox. The last 5 features have been available with Cscape 10 since release, but the next 5 are new features that have been added in 10.1 and 10.2. First, at number 5, we have Toolbox Favorites. These apply to not only the Logic Toolbox, but also the Graphics Toolbox. When you start Cscape 10 for the first time, you'll find an empty section at the bottom of the Toolbox list. This is your Favorites list. To add a function block or graphics object to this box, simply right-click and select Add to Favorites. This feature helps to save time by putting all your most used objects in one easy-to-find location. Next, at number 4, is Logic Bookmarks. This feature allows you to place a bookmark on any comment or ladder rung by simply right-clicking and selecting Add Bookmark. You can then quickly cycle through all bookmark locations by using Shift F2. This is a great way to navigate through large programs or pieces of logic. At number 3, we have a feature whose usefulness hinges on your project's use of hexadecimals. For instance, a lot of motion control products store data using hexadecimal values. In these applications, it's very common to move constant data around, which normally starts out as hexadecimal values. With the constant move block, you can enter those values directly and convert them to hexadecimal automatically by simply adding a H to the end of the value. This is a real time saver for those who work with hexadecimal values often. At number 2, we have another function block, specifically 2 function blocks, the move block and the indirect move block. These move blocks have been around for a long time, but Cscape 10 has made them more flexible. Now, they feature the ability to have different data types for the source of the move and the destination of the move. This means in Cscape 10, even more can be accomplished using move and indirect move blocks. Before we get to our number 1 feature, we have a few honorable mentions. First, we have the Dockable Data Watch window. Until recently, the Data Watch window, which shows live variable data values, floated above the desktop, but now it can be docked. This opens up even more customization options for your Cscape 10 instance. Our next honorable mention is Download Notification. This is an obvious one, but its importance might be overlooked because of how common it is. This simple message that appears on the completion of a download is a new feature to Cscape. In past versions, you were never certain when a download had fully completed, but this small change means you will always know exactly what Cscape is doing. Finally, our number 1 feature is the No Always On requirement. If you have been programming with Cscape for a while now, you will know that we have always required a Boolean contact at the start of every rung, even on rungs that are only intended to execute function blocks. To meet that requirement, you normally place an always on contact to the start of rungs that only contain function blocks. This requirement is a holdover from an old ladder logic standard, but in the modern automation world, many manufacturers ignored this requirement, and so we decided it was time for Cscape to ignore it as well. Starting with Cscape version 10.2, you no longer need to place a contact at the beginning of every rung in Advanced Ladder. Hopefully you've enjoyed our countdown, and possibly even learned something new. For the final segment of this week's webinar, we will look at what's coming up next with Cscape 10.2 Service Pack 3. One of the most important changes is the upcoming OCS 360 support for the Micro Series, CPU 200, and CPU 250. These popular low-cost products are finally receiving support for the OCS 360 cloud service. As long as these controllers are updated to firmware version 16.3 or later, you will now have the ability to add OCS 360 functionality easily through Cscape. Next, we have Ethernet IP scanner support, coming to the Canvas and XL Prime series. This means your Horner controller can create and control an Ethernet IP network, not just reside and share data on it. This feature has been tested on the Canvas series, but is now being fully released to all users for both the Canvas series and the XL Prime series. User security is also getting a boost in Service Pack 3. This refers to the runtime feature for logging in and out of user profiles, typically for machine operators. This will bring all Horner controllers in line with new IEC security standards. Users can now also manage their own passwords, foregoing the need for an administrator to change passwords. Finally, we have an update to OCS.io firmware updates. Updates for the CNX 100 and CNX 116 can now be performed directly from Cscape 10.2, Service Pack 3 or later. This makes the process of updating OCS.io modules much simpler, and we will cover this in more detail in a future webinar. That concludes our webinar for today. We hope you learned something new about Cscape 10 and are excited about the changes coming in Cscape 10.2 Service Pack 3. Thank you so much for listening, and the Q&A session will begin shortly.
Okay, the registration links are up for the upcoming webinars. You'll have been sent that in a newsletter also. I don't see anything in on today's webinar, but get in touch with technical support if you do have any questions on any of these. Okay, I think we can leave it there. Thank you all for joining, and we'll see you next time.